Day 9 of the journey through the storm. Eric's pain was of major concern. He rated it usually about an 8, 9, moments of 10. From the time I got there till I think it was days before he had gone down to a 7. But he was really weak and in pain, and yet hungry enough to eat, and they encouraged him to take in some food. And I remember feeding him a spoonful of fruit, and noticed him just catching his breath and trying to tell me something and crying out and saying, "Mom, please be more careful." And I thought, what did I do? Well, here a piece of pineapple, a pineapple tidbit, had fallen from the spoon into his lap and sent shockwaves through his whole entire nervous system. And I said, "Oh, Eric, I will be more careful." And I leaned in, and he's unable to breathe through the pain, and tears are coming down the sides of his eyes, and he gets it out. He finally says, "Mom, you're pressing on the mattress." Oh, who could be careful enough? He would sweat, and he would ask me if I would gently wipe the sweat from his brow that would go into his eyes and sting his eyes. So I would take a washcloth corner, and I would gently dab the moisture from his eyes. And he was always so grateful for that gesture. But once I heard that same familiar cry, "Please be more careful," and here a corner of the washcloth had fallen, and it was dragging gently across his chest. No one could be careful enough. At the time that I arrived, he had a roommate, an old man who would get up whenever he wanted and stumble across the room and grab Eric's bed, or end up grabbing Eric's foot for stability. Not meaning anything by it, but that would send Eric through the roof. That sudden touch. He told me that when I typed on Caringbridge, he could feel the vibration of me typing on the keys. He didn't tell me that until we were home. He told me when he was still at the farm, he could feel all the vibration of people walking on the floorboards. Light was tremendously sensitive. He often asked if the nurses could just come in without turning on the lights. Of course, they had to see, but they accommodated with turning on the least amount of lights for as quickly as they could. Light and sound and touch was enormously amplified with no filter. And he got a glimpse perhaps of what it's like for someone with severe autism and sensory integration disorders. It's not the same for them as it is for us, and it wasn't the same for Eric. I remember he had to go down for an MRI. That MRI, he said, was the worst that he had endured so far. But now they wanted to do a spinal tap. And those, he said, that would be going through hell. And I said, well, we'll wait until it's going through heck. But one trip, the fourth spinal tap, he had 4. That fourth spinal tap trip, Russell drove him. Russell was the best. Russell knew because Russell's co-worker had rat lungworm and had been off work for 7 weeks or a year, I guess, and then in the hospital for 7 weeks, if I remember correctly, and then had vision, a severe disorder in one eye, and I don't know if he was blind in that eye, and some other neurological setbacks. And Russell heard the stories of the pain, and so Russell was extremely sensitive, and he made sure that everyone that helped transfer Eric from the bed to the gurney, from the gurney to the exam table were careful, and he would get 4 strap-in nurses, 3 and himself, and on the count of 3 they would transfer gently but quickly. He would always warn Eric, on the count of 3 we're going to move. And he knew how to maneuver that bed, that gurney, so it didn't hit a door jamb or take a corner a little tight and just scratch the door or the wall. No big deal for most situations. Over the top pain for Eric. We were on the 3rd floor, and he would, when we got to the elevator doors, he would say, "Eric, we're going to go over the threshold. You'll feel a bump on the count of 3. 2 wheels." Eric's bracing himself. On the count of 3, Eric, 2 more wheels. And we jostled down to the basement where the lab was. And I remember getting there, and the big doors were closed, and they said that would be a minute before the neurologist was there. And Eric looked at me, and he said, "Mom, I can't. I just can't." And I'm thinking, you've got to. We have done the hardest part. Getting you from the bed to the gurney, from the gurney to the elevator, down 3 flights, through the doors, over all the bumps, making sure nobody touched you, making sure Russell never hit any bump that wasn't needed. If we don't do it, we're just going to have to do all of that hell backwards. I didn't say that to him. But I was like, oh. And he said, "Mom, you know Graham?" And I'll talk about Graham. Graham was a 22-year-old who lived in Hawaii with his mother. And he contracted rat lungworm disease. And Graham was about to be discharged when he went into a coma. And he was in that coma for 3 months. And then he came out of the coma and he was paralyzed for several more months. And Eric said, "Mom, Graham went into a coma, didn't he?" And I said, "Yep, he did." He said, "I want to go in a coma. Will they put me in a coma?" I had no answers. I did notice that Russell was walking around Eric, and I'm sure he was praying. I want to talk to you if you're in that season where you just about want to be put in a coma. Get me out of this pain. And a lot of times, and probably most of the time, it's the emotional, mental anguish. The physical pain they seem to often be able to manage with medications and treatments and all kinds of integrated medicine. But the mental and emotional anguish that you might be in, saying, get me out of this. I remember someone I love very dearly who was going through mental anguish, and it just was relentless and going on. And I remember her asking, what if I have to live like this for the rest of my life? I can't live like this for the rest of my life. And Eric, in his own way, was saying the same thing. Put me in a coma. Get me out of this. I leave you with this, if that's your situation, or if you're watching someone go through that. Read Psalm 23. In it, it says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. And the two words I want you to highlight, if you have a Bible, are with and through. Even though I go through the valley, you are with me. The point is, you're not being led to the valley and dumped off in this awful storm. And you are not going through it alone. You are going through the valley to green pasture, and you are going with the Lord. I hope you can believe that. And if you can't, I will pray for you if you can't even pray. And leave a comment if you will. Perhaps you'll just be leaving a comment to pray for somebody that needs to go through with the Lord. Maybe you have a question, and maybe you want to private message me for a specific prayer. But we are praying, and I know when I say we, there's a lot of you who read the comments and immediately pray for those people. See you tomorrow.